So I'm just going to make sure the recording has started, and it has. So Owen, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you got involved in Web3 recruitment?
Yeah, sure. My story is probably magic, like for some bizarre reason or not. In 2014, I found myself Googling internet money back in the day, and that's how I first found out about Bitcoin. And yeah, obviously held a good interest in the space for a number of years before that. And yeah, then over the course of COVID, my interest really intensified significantly. I was always, maybe from 2017 onwards, I was following the space more and more closely. But then when I just saw, I suppose I'm coming at this from a Bitcoin maxi perspective. That's kind of my into the space and my story into the space. I know you have certain opinions about people in the Bitcoin community. Some people,
we won't fight about the laser Bitcoin maxis tonight.
Yeah, but I guess so again, over the course of COVID, I just really kind of got I suppose the term orange pill really kind of sunk into sunk in through my veins really, and yeah, I was unemployed over the course of the COVID pandemic, and kind of got recruitment in Web3 by pure default rather than design, and in the space now 2.5 years, and yeah, it's been very, very successful. There hasn't been much leisure time in my life, but the job in itself is thoroughly rewarding. I've been lucky enough to place people in different blockchain projects now from 31 different countries. Again, what's great about the space is that it's really accelerating the democratization of labor markets, especially within the tech domains. So, for example, Pakistan has been a lucky hunting ground for me in terms of hiring low latency developers. And yeah, those developers are getting much better paid in Web3 than they would be in Web2. For example, in Web2, they'd be effectively sweatshop developers working for an agency, and that agency would be obviously then working for a big FANG type company. So I suppose there is it's a very rewarding space to be in. Yeah, it's very hands-on, very difficult.
That's really interesting, Owen, how you said there that these people from Pakistan would have been working in these kind of sweat factories, and how Web3 is kind of really democratizing that a lot more. Is that just Web3, or is it because we went remote during COVID?
Well, it could be a bit of both, to be honest, but such as the shortage of blockchain developers, senior blockchain developers, I would say is probably to do with that as well, especially in the Rust and Golang space in particular. But I would say that it's just to do with the specialized skills, and I think it's a mindset as well. So a lot of these Web3 projects, they're startup, they're borderless, they're non-discriminatory in terms of location, whereas I've worked in the multinational settings, and you're going into things like IDA grants where things are just a little bit more tricky. But yeah, but no, it's just just nature, and I think it's a lot more flexible and fluid, and yeah, shortage of good developers really, to be honest. Yeah.
That's super interesting. Could you share some insights about the types of clients that you've worked with and the specific roles that you filled in Web3?
Yeah, so I guess in respect to the number of roles, I've been lucky enough to hire 76 people over the last 2.5 years. Again, yeah, from 31 different countries, and it's been a bit mixture of everything really. I guess all the Web3 recruitment firms, a lot of them have been built on Rust recruitment in particular, because the Ethereum community, it's very, like usually a project that's looking for a Solidity developer, usually a senior blockchain engineer knows another senior, good senior Solidity engineer as well to bring him or her into the project. Hence, there's not really a need for a recruiter. Whereas in Rust, it's a little bit more trickier. But if obviously recruited across non-technical domains as well, and hire Solidity people and Golang people, but yeah, product, community, marketing, business development, DevRel. I've kind of ticked off nearly every discipline thus far. So yeah, it's just Rust has been the most successful, obviously. Yeah.
So I was kind of going to touch on that next. What are the key qualities and skills that are making candidates actually stand out in the Web3 market? And I suppose I want to ask you that from two perspectives, because there's the coding side and the dev side, and then there's the support side, office functions, marketing, finance, operations, business development, all the other side as well, which blockchains can't really survive on without. So what makes a candidate stand out in them sort of roles?
Yeah, so again, proof of work. Again, show initiative. Again, it's different. I guess from a recruiter point of view, I'd look at LinkedIn as the base layer for finding jobs in Web3. Yes, you can find jobs on Twitter and Discord, but the jobs tend to be of lesser quality. And I think that LinkedIn should really be your first important point in terms of your shop window. And yeah, but that's, yeah, and obviously show proof of work. So maybe if you're a marketer, for example, find a project that you like. Don't necessarily be hesitant to reach out to people if there isn't a job there within that project. Maybe it's a project that has only raised maybe a small amount of funding or is bootstrapped, and maybe they require an extra pair of hands, and then then use that logo to effectively use it as a springboard to get into the space. Again, a lot of projects are very myopic when hiring professionally. Like when hiring full-time people for Web3. So again, I think the pro bono approach for a few months is probably the best approach. And again, it gives people an inkling into whether or not they believe the space is for them. Now, it is very empowering. There is a lot of autonomy. There is a lot of upside as well, potentially, in terms of vesting schedules as well. But by the same token, it's pretty full on, flat out. No 2 days are the same. You're spinning a lot of different plates across all disciplines, and yeah, again, just see if it's for you. Again, like you could have personal circumstances or whatever that might and you might decide, no, maybe a 14-hour day in Web3 isn't for me. I hope that answers the question. I don't know. Just maybe I went off topic there, did I? I don't know.
No, not really. Didn't know. Who's hiring at the moment in Web3? So we've seen a lot of, obviously we're in a bear market. A lot of projects have had funding pulled. A lot of other projects are running out of runway now at the moment. And even the foundations themselves are tightening and pulling back and stuff like that. So who's actually hiring in Web3 at the moment?
Yeah, so there's a few layer ones, I suppose, that got funding, like I suppose, yeah, like they're not clients of mine, but things like Aptos and Sui, for example, would be doing a good bit of hiring at the moment. Yeah, and obviously there's various different projects that still have raised money throughout, in spite of the bear market woes. I guess from a recruitment point of view, yes, it is a lot more difficult than it was last year. And I suppose from a recruitment perspective, we're very leveraged on VC money. And just to give a bit of context, I suppose, funding in Q1 2023 in Web3 was 82% less than it was in Q1 2022. And that's just to give a bit of context. Again, yeah, there is a lot of projects, like, for example, during the bull market, like a few projects came to me and they'd be like, oh, we have this next gen DeFi idea. We raised 6 million or whatever, or 10 million or whatever. And you'd be wondering, like, what the fuck, how did you do? Do you know, when you just read the pitch deck, you know, but again, it's those projects, thankfully, a lot of them are running out of funding. Again, yeah, they spent ridiculous amounts of money on hiring and conferences and placing content and exchange listings. And there wasn't a whole lot of building in some of them going on, to be perfectly honest. So there was, yeah, it was just like, yeah, no, it's just, I think we're like flushing a lot of bad projects out of the space at the moment. A lot of projects are, as you can imagine, working on skeleton structures at the moment. The lights are on, but there's not really anyone home in a lot of these projects. But yeah, no, there is still projects, good projects. Like if you were effectively raising money at the moment, you have a solid use case. And yes, those projects are hiring and they're building their teams responsibly. And yeah,
that's great to hear.
Seriously, one's hiring. There's still a good bit of going on in the gaming vertical. There's what else? Yeah, there's DeFi. There's a lot going on in the Cosmos ecosystem in particular. It's been a lucky growth vertical for me over the last couple of months, hiring within that space. I've hired people from two different projects within the Cosmos ecosystem. And yeah, no, again, there's a lot of hiring going on in that ecosystem as well. So, and then, yeah.
So Cosmos is on fire.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Like, I think we're looking at an interesting future. That's, yeah. And excellent. I guess, yeah, Bitcoin. There's a few Bitcoin related projects now springing up and hiring, which is great as well.
That is great because, although I'm not a Bitcoin maxi, I'm loving the whole ordinal buzz and BRC20 buzz, and I'm in on all that crack that's going on with stamps and inscriptions and everything else. So yeah, I've seen some of the development myself that's going on in Bitcoin and the Bitcoin layer 2s like stacks and stuff like that, which is quite exciting. There's just a question in there from Chris before I continue on with my questions. Which type of developers are currently in high demand in terms of programming language and experience level?
Senior developers. That's the short answer for you. To be honest, a lot of the roles that I will be getting at the moment will be senior developer positions. People that effectively they're struggling to find themselves. And yeah, like I would be getting some mid-level full stack type positions as well. But it should be mainly senior developers, people with 3-4 years.
I was about to ask what's considered a senior developer in Web3.
Yeah, like proper good Solidity experience, like specific to the domain as well that the project is in. So like, for example, at the moment, like I'm working on a project that's involved in the liquid staking space, and they want a developer that has previous liquid staking experience. And in the bull market, it mightn't be too easy to find that, but now, whilst such developers are still in very, very high demand, I think they'll be okay and they'll get it. You know? So again, like there was a lot of nonsense going on during a lot of these projects that raise money stupidly during the bull market. They didn't even know what they wanted, to be honest. So they just hire any Tom, Dick, and Harry to effectively try and build a thing, and they've been none the wiser. And yeah, I think FTX was a big wake-up call for a lot of stakeholders in the industry, especially the VCs, because they woke up and realized, what have we actually invested in? And a lot of these projects they kind of done, and what have we actually hired as well, to some degree. Yeah.
Just back there on the experience thing, and you're saying, you know, around 4 years experience. So training as a developer, I mean, you can obviously go to college or do your courses online or whatever it is, whatever method of learning it is that suits you and your budget. If you're working, is it 4 years experience after you've completed them courses, or could you be completing them courses and putting repos up on GitHub for 4 years while you're learning? And then
yeah,
100%. To have like 4 years experience.
For developers, GitHub is really your resume. Again, you need a more formal resume for me to find you in a lot of instances. But yeah, like the CTOs of these projects will first look at the GitHub, and they'll look for projects that are of relevance to their own project. And yeah, that's like when I'm on screening calls, for example, as well. I have a look through a lot of developers' GitHubs as well. and I might ask one or two questions with regards to if I see something somewhat related to the project itself, ask what did you do here, or either that, or ask is there any particular projects within your GitHub that you're particularly proud of, and that will kind of help me kind of write a few lines to the end user client with respect to relevance. So again, yeah, because obviously you want the CTO to see it, and sometimes the internal recruiter mightn't be as evident, and relatability. So yeah, like again, 4 years experience. Again, like a lot, just to come back to my point again, like a lot of the hires that I'd be working with, there will be senior roles, especially within the Solidity realm. And the Ethereum community is just so strong and so interconnected. And Ethereum obviously was built on community, as everyone knows, but or most people here surely knows that as a senior developer will know another senior developer, put each other in touch. Whereas on Rust-based blockchain projects, it's not really as interconnected, I would say. Yeah, so obviously that bodes well for middleman, me.
Yeah, that's good for you. So it works for you. We'll just move on from that topic a little bit, and I'm going to ask you if there's any specific challenges or unique aspects that candidates should be aware of when going through interviews in the Web3 field.
Yeah, so that's a good question. I suppose there's money to be made in interviews. There's ideas to be made in interviews. There's ideas to be found in interviews as well. And obviously the candidate is trying to make the best first impression as he or she possibly can. And oftentimes a lot of candidates are railroaded. They go through 6, 7, 8 rounds of interviews, and it gets to the point where it's ridiculous. And and again, I just say to candidates, or people in general, if you feel like an external consultant rather than a job applicant, you need to ask a serious question, either to your recruiter or to the actual companies themselves, preferably the companies. I always ask when meeting with new clients as to what the interview process is like. And again, a lot of these senior blockchain engineers, as you can understand, a lot of them are eat rich. So a lot of them don't even need the money, and they certainly don't need the hassle. And I want to maintain the relationships with him or her like you would with anyone. So you're not going to piss him off or her off with respect to
crazy interview styles.
Putting through someone through the ringer for 6 or 7 interviews, meeting every single team member within the project. But yeah, again, it's again, for legal reasons, I won't name names, but there is a very, very, very well known layer 2 that's notoriously bad for it. And like there might be a job there, but they might speak to like 20+ people and send them through the ringer, like, through all these hoops and loops and whatnot. Yeah,
I have heard stories like that. All right, that it's not you can go through ridiculous amount of rounds of interviews and stuff like that in Web3. But I suppose one of the reasons
it makes sense. Like, listen, I'm not adverse to thorough interview process. I'd encourage it, especially in a remote first environments. But on the flip side of that, some people take the piss. Yeah.
Well, with it being remote first, they've got access to global talent instead of local talent.
Exactly. And I suppose for some of these projects as well, like that are doing a lot of these multiple interview rounds, some of these startup projects as well, some of them are actually trying to find out what their MVP is. So they're interviewing. So again, like I'm a miserable glass half empty kind of person anyway, as you can probably tell, but I do appreciate that there needs to be thorough interview processes, especially in a remote first environment. And then you have the whole Lazarus developer thing as well, which is another story. But but again, just some projects take the mix. So always ask your recruiter in advance how many stages are in this interview, and are you willing to go to war? And again, like sometimes you get the opposite. You get maybe 2 or 3 rounds, or maybe even 2, and say we're developers. We'll go through the GitHub with the candidates, and we'll know it fairly quickly. And
Good
Really
stuff.
good
I'm
things.
not a glasses half empty person. I'm not a glasses half full person either. I'm a glass is always refillable on. And you should
Nice.
know that
Okay.
if it was a pint glass now. I have a question in here from Sterling White. He's asking, what other non-technical roles do you see in demand? I am a marketeer, but see, there's not as much demand for it at the moment.
No, there's not, and I suppose there is still marketing jobs out there. I would say that with regards to non-technical roles in Pacific, there's they're not as remote friendly as they were during the bull market. And what I mean by not as remote friendly, I mean they're very much more conscious of time zones. So a lot of the roles that I would have in marketing and business development now would be, like they'd be kind of there wouldn't be the same overlaps, I suppose. Like for example, a European project would be a lot less likely to hire someone from San Francisco at the moment, or Singapore, for example. And yeah, what roles, like there is a huge supply demand imbalance. Senior business development people are obviously still fine. But with respect to you, Sterling, you're a marketer, salaries in marketing have really dropped significantly from bull market to bear market. And there's a huge supply of marketers out there at the moment. And it's pretty sad because a lot of these people are talented, and now is the time when they really want to be kind of, getting your word out there, especially. But again,
And as
again,
the
if
salaries have come down, have the expectations from candidates also come down in line with this?
to a large degree, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like for example, I was working on an 80K role there not too long ago. I suppose now that I'm after mentioning the salary, I can't name the client, but I guess yeah, like a lot of these people that would have been pushed forward on my side for that particular role, that I would have screened, would have been getting offers and would have been making north of 100K, 120 easy. And again, like a lot of those marketers then are, dare I say it, unfortunately, unemployed through no fault of their own because of recklessness on the project side. Like again, things are on steroids for a while in the Web3 space, and marketing was a key beneficiary of it. It was the first thing to go up and the first thing to come down. And it wasn't uncommon for a Web3 marketer to get a job offer in say like January 2021 for 100K, and then get 150 grand job maybe 3 or 4 months later. It definitely wasn't uncommon.
Wow.
And yeah, it was just, the thing was on steroids. And yeah,
Will it go back to being on steroids?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I don't think the same. I don't think they'll be the same. I don't think those ridiculous salaries will come back, to be honest. Yeah, and again, like, yeah, no, I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. And kind of, I hope not to a degree, because again, like a lot of these projects just blew their runway on hiring and other related activities as well. So I would hope not. And yeah, some of these projects that might have raised, say, like 5 or 6 million, built their teams and overhired way too quickly. And if you just did the math, the team is X number of people, average salary is Y. Okay, all right. And you're just doing the math, right? How long, like, where's the next thing going to come from? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was going to lead into a kind of question on that, because there's a lot of scams out there in the Web3 space and in the crypto space, and there's a lot of job scams as well.
Oh yeah, like
so there is. Do you want to talk about some of the job scams, and then maybe also describe how you would vet a client to make sure that they're a legit client?
Yeah, so just on that as well, actually, funny enough, the Axie Infinity hack was actually done through a fake job as well, and that resulted in a loss of 600 million or something back in late 2021. But yeah, no, like, then there is a lot of job scams out there. 100%. So like when you're vetting a client, you just need to know how serious they are. Again, you just do a bit of background check on the team. You again, like for example, a big red flag for me is asking for a pitch deck. To be honest, that's even basic things like that. And people, like, you get a lot of bullshit stories when you ask for a pitch deck. Like people saying like how, or only candidates will be able to see the pitch deck, and if they do see it, they have to sign an NDA. Those people can F off as far as I'm concerned. I have no interest, and I don't want to jeopardize my network. And why would I jeopardize my network when I don't even know anything about you in the first place? And yeah, but there is a lot of there is a lot of job scams, and like you're looking at
What would you
LinkedIn.
recommend if somebody was looking for a job or were approached by a Web3 company saying, hey, we think you'd be great for this job. Do you want to join our team? What steps should these people take to make sure they're not falling for a job scam? Because obviously when somebody, and I actually am connected to somebody on LinkedIn that this happened to recently.
Yeah.
He's an engineer. He was working for them for about 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah, and he never got paid in the end. Yeah.
Well, that he should have gotten, yeah, should have been sending he should have been sending alarm bells like after 1 month at very, very least. But yeah, no, it easily happens, trust me. Yeah, I suppose yeah, just make sure that you're getting, yeah, make sure that you're getting paid. And again, a lot of the blockchain related work is B2B focused as well, which makes it a bit more trickier to ensure that you're getting paid. And again, like maybe you could ask your employer to maybe sign you up through a thing like Deal as well, and make sure and ask that employer then that they have enough money set aside in that account so that you are paid for those couple of months as well. That could be one practical way about it. But a lot of times you have to trust your gut to a degree. And one thing that I would often look for is, in terms of red flag, is the team in particular. And yeah, like again, like if they have a team of maybe say 10 people, for example, within a project, how many of them team members have public profiles on LinkedIn identifying themselves to that project? How serious are they? And how, you know, because the more serious they are, the more willing, more professional they are, and the more likely they are to fulfill their obligations.
Okay. I have another question in there from Chris. He's saying, for someone new to the development field and seeking to secure a job quickly, which ecosystem would you recommend as the most beneficial? Again, it really does depend on your,
like again, it depends on his or her language skill set. So again, you're kind of asking a question that I can't really answer without knowing their particular stack. Again, there's a lot going on in the Rust space. There's some great projects building on Rust. Yeah, like obviously you have the likes of Near, Polkadot, Cosmos, and yeah, within Solidity, obviously there's a whole host of EVM-based chains that you can join, some better than others. Again, yeah. So like again, there's obviously. Like again, it really just depends. If you're there's a lot going on in the Golang space as well. Again, so again, it really does depend on your language stack, but again, like, and it depends on what your interests are, I suppose, as well. Like, so like if you were into things like gaming, for example, maybe Polygon might be a more suitable vertical for you, for example. And again, if you're into oracles, for example, obviously you'd look at things like Chainlink as well. It just depends on where your interest lies. Okay, I hope that answers your question, Chris. There's just a comment in there as well from P, just saying, sorry, can we speak a little slower? So I do apologize. Both of us are Irish. And so between us, we're probably speaking a little bit fast. So I do apologize for that. And if you are having difficulty, please feel free to also turn on the transcripts. There should be a transcript button at the end of your screen. And hopefully that will be able to help you along as well. But that's our fault from the Irish banter, and we just keep rolling. I know the tip accent can be a hard one to decipher, in fairness, yeah.
Well, that's it. You don't even have a nice, thick, clear Dublin accent. It's a country accent you have. Okay, so in terms of the Web3 jobs out there at the moment, you kind of touched on this already. Are they typically more remote, hybrid, or in office jobs?
So there is a growing demand for hybrid. A lot of these companies that are scaling up now, for example, are looking more and more at the hybrid model. As they're scaling up, they're hiring more junior people, less and less obviously heads of mid-levels, and they want people in offices a lot more. And a lot of that is to kind of, I feel, benefit the junior people so that they learn through the osmosis effect, and there's a little bit more accountability and learning and helping them with onboarding. So yeah, as projects scale up, I think there is a bit more emphasis on the office, so to speak. But yeah, no, Web3 is primarily remote first. Yeah, so it depends. But there is a
Okay,
growing, you see, like we're coming out of COVID, some projects are scaling up. And yeah, there is a small push for the office, but it's not widespread, I would say.
okay. We touched on this as well a couple of minutes ago. How do companies address the challenge of seeking experienced or formal education in something that hasn't been around long enough for people to have that level of experience or formal qualifications?
Again, they're really, again, the great thing about Web3 is that it's a meritocratic based hiring market. So proof of work is key, not proof of education or proof of place, to a large degree. So, like for example, I rarely talked about people about what their formal education is, to be honest. It's not something that comes up often in talks, to be honest, with candidates. I'm all about what they've actually done. And yeah, like as someone that enjoyed my few years in college, again, I think it's not really something that it's given a lot of, it's not really too important within the Web3 space, or
Okay.
like again, like if you have a solid GitHub repo with or a solid portfolio on Behance, for example, if you're a designer, well, they're not going to care really where you went to college maybe a couple of years ago. And it might be different, of course, if you're working in institutional sales within the digital asset space in New York, for example, where a Columbia logo or a Harvard logo would be, yeah, then I would say, yeah, it's important to a degree, but broadly speaking, no.
So moving on now to roles that are a little less focused on development, because I know we have a lot of people in here that aren't developers. They'd be community managers, they'd be marketeers and this sort of stuff. How important is community involvement and participation in the Web3 industry? And how do companies actually evaluate a candidate's ability to contribute to a community?
Yeah, so again, so the community is huge within a Web3 context, as I alluded to earlier. Yeah, so Ethereum was built on community, and the reason why Ethereum is where it is today is largely due to the steadfast commitment of its members. With respect to the actual community roles, community is growing in importance, I would say, within the Web3 space. And it's, whilst general marketing is struggling, I do think in the circumstances of the bear market, community and DevRel are doing particularly well in the circumstances in Web3. And yeah, so yeah. With respect to community, I would look at maybe like in terms of candidate evaluation, like community is a very fickle, it's a very hard one to evaluate, because you can either go very objective or you can go the subjective approach in terms of community and when evaluating candidates. And what do I mean by that is, if you took an objective approach, you're looking for seeing growth figures. I raised the Telegram by this, I raised the Twitter by this, but what if they're all bots and scammers? Like
Yeah.
if you're building a rocket ship, you want the right people on that rocket ship to thrive, to help the community thrive. And you definitely don't want a load of shillers and whatnot and monsoon people within that community. You want the right participants within that community. So again, like if you're taking a more subjective approach, you want to think about the AMAs that you've held, maybe who you've had within those AMAs, maybe what partnerships that you've helped evolve through those community launches, and yeah, various different things like that. Maybe kind of the quality of the content, who's building within the community now, what was it like before and after, and yeah, you can kind of yeah, and like again, it's very hard to like yeah, again, like I would look at, like when you're evaluating community, you prefer to take a more indirect approach, seeing like how is the project thrive overall, rather than in terms of bare numbers, because
And in terms of community, because you know the way like Web3 we've always been, it's a community. Yeah, we can be tribal and communities can fight between each other and whatnot, but it's always been said that the bedrock of Web3 is communities. And we've seen Web2 brands come in to Web3, for example, Nike and like Swoosh, and they're jumping in on community involvement. Have you seen much of this in other Web2 businesses where they're catching on to the idea of, well, hold on, community can make or break a project, community can increase turnover, community can... Have you seen many non-Web3s start to think this way or come into the space realizing?
Especially in the reward context as well. Like I think a lot of these lot more Web2 projects or Web2 companies and established brands are learning from Web3 as well, in terms of that they want evangelists and fans rather than actual customers. And again, that comes into another point as well, where a lot of projects slip up. The community is vital, and it's good to have people cheerleading and developing within your community and learning from each other. But what I would say about Web3 projects is your community members aren't necessarily your business customers, and that's something that a lot of Web3 projects kind of need to realize. Community research isn't necessary, you know, like from a UX research perspective, I would say that your customer for the next billion users isn't necessarily your 10,000 people in Telegram, for example. You know,
I understand. I've experienced that myself, that you can get false positives from your community, or even false negatives from your own community, because they're part of your community, so they can be slightly biased in whatever their emotion is at the time, and that can lead to both false positives and to false negatives. With the rapid and evolving way of Web3 technologies, how do companies ensure that they hire candidates that can adapt to these changes and stay ahead of the curve?
So what do you mean exactly? Sorry.
So because everything changes so fast in Web3, like what, you know, we now all of a sudden have account abstraction. We didn't have that this time last year. So the dApps that are going to be built next year are going to be so much different to the dApps that were. How do employers in the Web3 space make sure that the people that they hire are able to stay up to date, because things stay so fast? Things change so fast.
Again, they just look at the profile, like you're kind of looking at past results to determine future probabilities to a large degree. And yeah, do
they offer incentives for learning? Would employers in Web3 offer incentives for learning as a benefit, educational incentives and that?
No, and that's something that really the space does need to, like anything remotely related to HR, it's a bit of a shit show in Web3 to a large degree.
Wow.
In terms of like proper probation reviews, in terms of onboarding employees, in terms of educational assistance or support, in terms of things like holidays, for example, in some projects as well. Yeah, no, again, anything remotely related to HR needs to be improved drastically, I would say, in about I would say just a ballpark figure, but I would say probably about 70% of Web3 projects, 60% of Web3 projects anyway. Again, it is improving, to be fair, but a lot, some like improvements have been made in that regard compared to 2 years ago, I've noticed. But yeah.
That's really interesting and actually quite surprised. Well, in a way, it's quite surprising, and in a way, it isn't, because one of my experiences with projects and me trying to educate projects and how projects has been that they're teams of developers, and they don't get the value of other departments because they're not revenue generating, they're not adding to the actual building of the product, and they're left behind. So in a way, I'm surprised, but I'm kind of saddened that you've solidified that thought.
No. It's like, again, like you look at projects that maybe have good HR infrastructure from the outside looking in, and I'm thinking consensus and parity, for example, seem to be well on top of these things. And guess what? These projects have good retention, and they're thriving within the space. So yeah, again, I think just HR needs to be sold a lot more within a Web3 context, to be honest. Yeah.
Okay. So here's another good question for you. What are some of the key differences between working for a startup in the Web3 space versus a more established company? And how does that actually impact the hiring process between a startup and a more established company?
Sorry, could you repeat the question? I just zoned out at the start. Sorry.
That's okay. Just don't listen to me. That's fine.
No. I just had a message. Yeah.
What are the differences between working for a startup in the Web3 space versus a more established company, and how does this impact the hiring process?
Yeah. So, very good question. Again, when you're like, I would say that when you're working in a startup environment, obviously there's a lot, you're less, you get a lot more exposure to various different verticals, and you get to learn a lot more. An established Web3 project, your work is naturally enough a bit more specialized, as it would be in any kind of, regardless of whatever iteration of the web we're talking about. So yeah, again, from it's like sometimes in Web3, like what you notice is that, like, you can see a bit of retail recruitment going on, and it was especially like when some of these projects were in what I would call shit creek mode at the start of the bear market, and kind of the hangover kind of hit them, for use of better term. They kind of, there was a bit of a mini demand for this person to come from a top 100 project or a top brand, and I would say like for, oh, he or she worked X project, he or she must be good, this person will help us potentially raise money. And there is still even a bit of retail recruitment going on within Web3 to a large degree. So again, that is a bit of a problem, to be honest. The more established you are, the better chance, the more established a project, dare I say it, the more doors you'll open for yourself.
Yeah.
Whether they're the projects you want to be joining, and it's a completely different story, but like, you could have learned, like, you could have earned, or you could have learned a hell of a lot more at a Series A project, or a project subject to an ecosystem grant, for example, in 6 months, than you would have, say, for a top 100 project on CoinMarketCap. But the vast majority are going to hire from, unfortunately, and to a degree, from the top 100 project. And again, like, I suppose there's that reassurance in the brand as well, which I can understand to a degree, but sometimes you just throw across this amazing candidate, and you know this person is just so good, and you want, like, you try and So say, right, I need you to speak to this particular person. And I rarely do this, but just say, please just speak to this person. And yeah, you just sometimes that request just falls in deaf ear and you're like, you really did miss out.
Oh,
Yeah. But anyway, that's just
yeah.
say,
Yeah. Just some comments in here. So P has said, Cape Town is far behind with Web3. How would we start that community here? Well, if you're talking about just starting a normal general Web3 community, feel free, P, to reach out to us. Send me an email, paula@ablockofcrypto.com, and I can talk to you separately about that, because we are actually looking for meetup hosts around the world. Now it's a self-employed job. It's not a paid job, but we could discuss that at another stage. But if you wanted to drop me an email to paula@ablockofcrypto.com, we can discuss that. But if you're asking it from a more recruitment point of view, the question in there is, Cape Town is far behind with Web3. How would we start that community here? How would you answer that, Owen?
yeah, so do something about it. That's the easy way to do it. If the community it's behind in Cape Town, again, reach out to people that maybe did eat events in, say, like Dublin or Amsterdam or Belgrade or Rome, for example, and see how they did it, and set up your own local meetup within Cape Town. If you know 10 people that are interested in Web3 within Cape Town, organize a drinking session, and yeah, or a meetup talking about it, or someone established within Web3 living in Cape Town, hire a section of a bar maybe, or delegate, or just go to a restaurant and get that esteemed speaker to talk to a select few of you about Web3, and whether it's a marketer or a developer or whatever, and yeah, word of mouth will spread. So yeah, do something about it. Set up a little event, and there'll be
Perfect
a snowball.
answer. Perfect answer. It is, just do something about it yourself. Don't sit around. Henrique has asked, are you seeing AI or ChatGPT impacting job opportunities or applications?
I see some concerns from candidates, definitely. One person that I know very well is probably one of the best community people that I know. He kind of said to me that he was half considering getting a trade, and he was only half joking when he said it. But yeah, there is a bit of fear among candidates, but job opportunities impacting, I would say, maybe a little bit on a positive side. I would say looking at how AI and Web3 can be integrated together, and that's creating more job opportunities as of now. In terms of job opportunities, what I would say is that there's a lot more job descriptions being written by ChatGPT now, naturally enough, and so just be very, very careful. Just, I suppose, like, I'm increasingly honing into clients now. What are your top 4 non-negotiables when hiring for a role? Because you just want to, and I've always kind of more or less asked that question anyway, but now I'm making sure I definitely ask it, what are your top 4 non-negotiables? Because again, you just want to cut through the BS in the job descriptions. So yeah, no, it's not really, but yeah, job descriptions, yeah, there's a lot more jobs being written.
What about CVs? Are people doing their CVs and letters of application with ChatGPT as well?
There is a CV resume, there is an AI CV resume generator out there somewhere. I forget the name of it, but there is one definitely out there. That's meant to be quite good. But yeah, again, I haven't heard of many people using it, to be honest. Yeah.
You previously shared with me outside of the Meetup group a CV template.
Oh, yeah.
You happy enough for me to share that with the community and drop it into the Telegram channel later on?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. Well, look, if anybody else has any questions for Owen, if you want to drop them there into the comments, because I'd love to hop over to Robert for a minute because I know Robert's been hiring. He put some comments in there a couple of minutes ago that he's hired a few senior developers. Robert, can you speak?
Yeah, I can speak. That's no problem.
Sure. How have you found the hiring experience trying to look for the staff that you're looking for, and what staff have you been looking for?
I found most of the team through LinkedIn. I've used other platforms like Indeed and Remote Hub. Relatively successful on Remote Hub. But LinkedIn is where I hired like probably 90% of the team. So I've been hiring over the last few months. We are about 15 people right now. We're building on the Cardano blockchain. I've successfully built other protocols on Cardano, and we're kind of doing very well so far. But yeah, the hiring, it's challenging to find people in the space because everything is so new. And so what I've typically have done is like just found people who have software development experience and just kind of, hey, here's a platform for you to learn, explore. Let's see if you can learn these new technologies, especially on the Cardano blockchain. All the technologies are brand new. It's not anywhere near as established as Ethereum. The languages are brand new. Like the language that we're using only has existed for 2 years. So it's so brand new that you can't get a senior developer for that specific language. So I just look for, people who have passion, who have excitement and like want to try something new, just come on board and let's try and build something cool together. But it's been a lot of fun, been doing really well with the hiring so far. But it's very tiring.
And have you hired outside of developers? Have you hired non-technical people, and what sort of roles have you been trying to fill there?
Yeah, so we have a full-time marketer on board. That was one of my first hires. I have design team who have designed out the whole app. And so the initial app version, like I just threw together in the weekend and it looked really ugly. But yeah, our designers have really brought everything to life. And then the marketing, just have one person in marketing right now because we'll expand that as we get some more traction with the product. Also have just like general assistants and have some people on the trading team as well. But yeah, predominantly developer heavy because that's where most of the work is needed, but definitely always looking for marketers. Marketers are very important in the space.
Okay, well, I think you left your contact details there in the chat, did you? For anybody that may have a CV they want to send across to you?
Yeah, anyone who's interested, welcome to just send me an email at robert@cryptico.llc. Happy to make a connection.
Excellent. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Thanks very much. Has anybody got any questions for Robert? Okay, well, look, I know we're just gone past time now at the moment. So what I've done there is I've actually dropped a link to Owen's LinkedIn profile into the chat there. And the Telegram channel has also been dropped into the chat. So if you join the Telegram channel, what we'll do is download the chat and it'll have all the links in there. And we'll upload that chat to the Telegram channel. The recording will also be available then on our replay page in the next day or two. So just on that, what I want to do now is really thank both Owen very much. It's been such a pleasure and enlightening to have you on and to share with us. Have you got roles open at the moment, Owen?
Yeah, funnily enough, I actually signed a client there today that's looking for people in London. So if somebody's looking for either marketing jobs or account manager jobs in London in your next week meetup, make sure to drop my name because it should be a huge help. Yeah, and overall I'm working on kind of a mixed bag of roles at the minute, 18 different positions, and yeah, at various different stages. So yeah, no, a lot going on.
And the best place for people to register with you as somebody seeking work would be via LinkedIn?
Via LinkedIn now. I'm hoping to have the website ready next week, and it's, yeah, like I've been saying that now for about 2-3 weeks now.
Yeah,
Which is,
yeah.
but I've been just so busy actually recruiting the people that I just haven't had time to give it the final push. But the integration is in place. The design is, what I would say, 90% there. It's just a case of uploading the roles now and letting the site go live effectively. Any designers want to give me feedback, connect to me on LinkedIn, and I'd love to get some feedback off you guys. But yeah, no, all going well. Finally, it'll be next week, and then you can apply directly and you can read the job descriptions without getting in touch with me on LinkedIn. And yeah, again, to make my life a lot easier, hopefully, if I finally the website up and running.
Excellent. Well, look, when you have your website up and running, if you ping me, and
Yeah.
then I'll drop it into the Telegram and I'll send it out in our newsletter as well as a follow-up, so everybody gets it. But in the meantime, everybody's free to bombard you and stalk you on
Yeah.
LinkedIn until you get them all a job. Yeah.
100%, yeah.
Owen said that now he's 100% going to get everybody here a job.
Yeah, we'll do our best.
Deadly. Well, look, on that, I'm going to end it. Thank you, Owen, very, very much. It's definitely been inciting. There's some lovely comments coming in as well from people just saying that it was insightful and that it was interesting, and can they have links. So as I said, all the links are in the chat, but I'm going to download the chat and drop the chat into the Telegram channel, so you'll get them all there. So Owen, thank you very much, and everybody else, I'll see you all next week at the meetup. Thank you. Goodbye now. See you all.
Yeah,
See you, John. See you,
Guys,
Primo.
good to
Great to see you,
Thanks a
Primo.
minute.
Hiya, Vic. See you, Victor. Hiya, Victor. I didn't see you coming in.
Yeah.
Shadmas, how are you? Pragna, goodbye.
Bye.
Dee, I hope you have a lovely evening. Juan, thanks very much for joining us this evening. Eukalikio, I can't pronounce your name. I'm really sorry. Have a lovely evening. Shadams, thank you very much for coming. I hope you all found it of great value this evening. I'll just stop this recording.